So this is kind of what I got going on. Color picker, it's not quite dynamic because technically dynamic means it changes the things, the macro images, but that takes up a lot of time and resources that I'd rather spend my time programming. So basically, all spots, washes, beams, LEDs, which will be LED strips like color forces, and LED panels like QPix panels. And then I have some just total warm looks, some total cool looks that will be cool. Fade times, delay times, which are sweeps. And then these are modifiers that change the direction of how they sweep across the rig. I can, where are we? This changes what I'm about to show you from chases to just single shots. And then this resets the rate from my rate master. So here, we'll take it all to white. This is a rig of 48 spots, 48 beams, and 48 washes. It's more than I will ever have, but it's a lot easier to clone from a massive rig to a smaller one than vice versa. I think I'm around 5,762 parameters for this show. We'll see how that works with unlocking universes. Hopefully it just unlocks the ones closest to 1, and then I bury everything else higher, and it just, you know, we don't have an issue when I'm on a light. Fingers crossed. If not, I'm running an NPU and touring with an NPU just for this show file. Sorry, Nick. So here, Jason Giaffo, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that name right, but he's the one who made the Lua plugin that generates everything you see on this page minus these two things. So basically the Lua plugin, and I'll link it in wherever I post this, the Lua plugin generates presets to sequences, and then these are just macros that reference those sequences, and then there's a separate, it's 3 separate plugins. One does what you see here, the color grid, one does fade times, and then one does the green and blue delay times. So huge shout out to Jason for this. We've been talking, he's been helping me out with some other stuff over here, with some picking and choosing some stuff, but I'll get to that later. What I've built is a ABC picker that a lot of people are using nowadays. And it actually references a few different, it does do a few different things. So over here are presets 24, 25, and 26. And so when I tap this, it changes that preset, right? But it also sets a variable that tells me what A is gonna be for these. So if I hit A, what's actually happening, I'll show you over here on my screen, is set variable color sequence A equals macro 1002, which happens to be my CTO macro. Blind copy preset CTO at preset A, and then it gets out of blind. The correct way to do this, I found out, is blind edit, so that way you don't actually get into the programmer. I was trying to use blind to not get in the programmer, but blind is still its own programmer. So, oh, and then it runs another macro that relabels that preset A. Otherwise, if you just copy and overwrite, it calls it number 2 or something. So if I copy open at open, it will call this one open number 2. And I have a thing where I don't like to refer to anything in my macros by number in case I feel weird and want to move them around. So I always reference macros by name inside of other macros and inside of, you know, sequences firing macros. So without further ado, we're gonna be patriotic because we need patriotism now more than ever. Red, white, blue. Cool, and my chase is off. So here we have, I'll off this. There we go. So in this we have color ABC, color BC, and CA. So really, if I hit go, color A will go, color B will go, color C will go, in whichever direction is defined here. So if I have them coming away from center, and I hit color A on the first one, we get delay times across the entire rig. So red, white, and blue. So every time I hit X11, which bumps color A, B, and C, color A, B, and C. So whatever these are, turn into A, B, and C. And most people do this by changing the presets in the cues. I did a roundabout way, since I didn't take the time to make all of those sequences myself, that the plugin generated them for me. Instead of changing the delay times manually with macros, it's all done with this plugin. Has made all those macros for me. So I am literally changing a variable with OpenA that takes color sequence A variable, so that way, I'll show you what's inside of this guy. Go color sequence A, set variable color current sequence, and then off color, or off executor color minus the current executor, which I could change. I could simplify that. But anyways, it's so that it offs when I go to a different one, it offs the previous one. That way I can always hit ABC, 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 and then I can get some cool ABC if I have different ones. A, B, C, A, B, C, right? Kind of cool. I've also taken the liberty of making some temps that will pull, so over here it's just intensities, we'll pull down the beams, because temp off color time with a color wheel fixture looks really horrible, unless you're doing it intentionally, in which case that's cool. But for me, same thing. A is already white, so A doesn't work when I hit that button, but B, C, and it just takes the entire rig to whatever I have defined B and C as. So if I set C to green, we go to green. And then over here, I don't know where to put these yet, because I'm still trying to figure out where I'm going to store everything. But over here, I have some macros that change my off times just for these hits. And really those will be like kind of like global off times that set off times for whatever hit buttons I have, because off times are pretty for intensity and bumps to white or whatever. But if I have the whole rig in green, bumping to white, focus. Bumping to white is really tasteful, you know. Individual color delay timings thanks to Jason, and then I'm firing them via macros that I've built here. So what's cool is I built a macro that will change what these do. So right now, color A, B, and C are goes, and these, for those who are wondering, these are just empty. These three sequences actually have content in them. These 5 sequences on the bottom are just firing macros, so there's really nothing stored in them. Just macros. So when I hit X10, it changes what these do, right? So every time I hit it, either it changes it from a go or to a trigger time. So if I have it on a time and then I hit go, we see it's playing like it normally would, and it's just looping. You could do this with a chaser, but I just like sequences, I don't know. So we get this kind of an effect. So all of a sudden I have a color, basically a color generator, a 3-color color generator, which is really hard to do in MA since you can only go between 2 different color presets. Over here we have rate masters that set the rates within a couple of things. They set the rates within the color sequences and within these. So they all track together. So if I change this rate master, hopefully the whole rig, we can have those beams back because we're not doing fade times. The whole thing slows down, right? If you don't have the rate master on the sequence firing the macros and the sequences that are being fired by the macros that actually have the content in them, it doesn't work, and it looks like you just keep, you keep firing it over and over and over, and they just stack on top, which is a cool effect that I'll show you in just a second. But for now, I can speed it up, slow it down, whatever. And the reason why I'm sticking with Jason's plugin is because he also has a plugin that lets you update day to day. So basically you make a new layout in whatever rig you have, with whatever house, whatever festival, and you store new groups, and then you run a plugin, or I'm sorry, you run a macro that updates basically your selection order. So I'm really, really excited about this. I've been wanting delay timings like this for a really long time. This is kind of a backwards way to do it, but I like it. I'm gonna try to keep you guys updated on this show file. For those of you that aren't lighting people, I'm sorry, this is nerd stuff. For those of you that are, hopefully you found it interesting. Oh, I have one more thing. So we'll off the sequence. Cool, and so I have just A, so whatever A is currently. I was trying to figure out a way to wipe, sweep 1 second, A1. Well, never mind, that's not working. We'll get back with that later. That's supposed to be a wipe across, Oh, I know why. Because A, this is gonna take some getting used to. I have to always remember what are currently loaded. So right now A is white. So the rig is white, the rig is open. So if I hit it, it just flashes, nothing happens. So if we change A to red and then hit A, there we go, something happens over here. So what this does is it flashes because it goes between a preview programmer, I think, inside of these macros that Jason has made. But inside these buttons, I'm actually changing the direction and firing, they're kind of cool, let me show you. So I'm firing the macro that changes the direction of everything, right? So I'm literally firing these macros. And then go whatever the variable color sequence A is, which in this case is whatever button I press here that sets the variable, right? So then in a follow queue, I have go current color sequence. So remember earlier when I was showing you these, it sets the variable to the current color sequence is sequence B, right? Because it's firing B. So that's important because otherwise, if I just hit go color sequence A, it wipes the entire rig to A. So this is, it does a little flag thing, which is really cool. So if I have everything in A, and then I go to A, it does a little flag, which would really be the same thing as me hitting this A button and then back to the original and then back to A. So that way I don't have to remember. I just hit A and it wipes. And what's really cool is I can change the width of that wipe by changing this time. So if I change the trigger time to 0.1, actually let's just take it off. We'll change it to a 0 time. It's just gonna be a follow. So now when I hit it, it's just gonna streak, a tiny little streak, just long enough for the macro to fire the other macro to fire the sequence, and then it refires the other macro that fires the macro that fires the sequence. Lots of macros, really, really heavy macro show. I hope the MA can take it. But basically what I've done is make these buttons so that it's a left and right. So instead of creating two different, right, a left and a right sweep. Eventually I would like to have buttons for everything, like from center and then away from center, but that's starting to take up a lot of real estate on, you know, these prime X keys here that are gonna use for strobes and blinders and cool stuff like that. But I really like that. And I'm pretty sure that the flash, like I said, that shouldn't happen actually with the lights. That's just the way that the preview is working. But yeah, I'm stoked. It's really cool. It's really, really cool. Huge shout out to an inspiration of mine, Saxton Waller, who was with Sound Tribe for a very long time. And I went to this show at the Tabernacle in Atlanta a couple years ago. And he had some of the craziest color delay timings I've ever seen in my life, and it was beautiful. He did a really good job, and ever since, I've wanted this. And so the past couple days I've built it, and now it's mine. I'm gonna share it with the world, and I'm really excited. So cool. Comment, like, subscribe. I don't even know if you can do that with Facebook, but do something, I don't know. Thanks guys.